If you think Father knows best, discover that he's no match for the big daddies of the natural world. We're counting down the top 10 most extreme dads in the animal kingdom and comparing them to human attempts to father their way into the record books. Find out what it's like to be a real cool daddy when fatherhood's taken to the most extreme.
Earth is a planet of extremes. Extreme places. And extreme animals. But some animals are more extreme than others. Join us as we count down to find the most unusual and the most extraordinary on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 10.
The countdown begins in Africa with a father that's really extreme. Extremely hot and extremely lazy. The lion is number 10 in the countdown because the king of the beasts is actually a real layabout. He can, quite happily, doze for 20 hours a day. But even this most ferocious father gets no respect from his children. The lion can have about 20 curious cubs, thanks to his 7 lionesses. When it comes to lions, bringing up the babies is definitely woman's work, for this father is a fighter. These 2 bachelors want to make babies. As father of the pride, it's up to this extreme dad to stop them. For if he fails, these new males will kill all his cubs. The lion is number 10 in the countdown because when it comes to looking after his family, it pays not to rumble with the king of the jungle. But lions aren't the only dads to have to fight for their families. In days of old, human fathers protected their homes against all kinds of dangers, both real and imagined. However, today's battles are a little more paltry. Domesticated dads don't have to fight off wild animals anymore, so they've had to find another outlet for their primal instincts. That's why some psychologists think that males have become so fascinated with sports. Through sports, men can prove their masculinity. For some fathers and sons, just watching sports is a way of making an emotional connection. But there are other ways of bonding that take place in a less testosterone-enriched environment.
The YMCA Indian Guide program draws a father and son together. A boy grows by identifying with his father.
Perhaps lion cubs would find it easier to identify with their father if he spent more time on the sofa watching sports and less time playing football with his kids.
Number 9.
Some men think they're great lovers, but like most male animals, they're not very good at relationships. Male animals are more than happy to make babies, but when it comes time to raise a family, they don't stick around for long. Our next contender lives in Australia and is the Casanova of the countdown. It's the marsupial mouse called Antechinus. He's 11 months old and has just become sexually mature. But he's only got 3 more weeks to live, so when he finds a female, he's got an itch that really needs scratching. The Antechinus is number 9 in the countdown because he's so busy making babies that he forgets to eat, drink, and sleep. He can spend up to 12 hours on the job, unless he's interrupted by an equally desperate rival with fantasies of fatherhood. Driven into a sexual frenzy by a huge burst of natural steroids in their bloodstream, males fight for females. And if they lose, then it's off to find the next potential mother. The Antechinus's extraordinary powers of passion have only been rivaled by one man, the most extreme father in history. According to the record books, the human Antechinus lived in Morocco at the end of the 16th century. He was Emperor Ismail the Bloodthirsty. With his 4 wives and harem of 500 concubines, he's said to have fathered a record 888 children. Ismail must have been a very busy man indeed, for making babies is biologically quite difficult. That's because fertility statistics show that 10% of the harem are likely to be infertile. And all the remaining women would only have a short period of fertility in their monthly cycle. Don't forget that the chances of conceiving can actually be as low as 15%. And of those that actually get pregnant, there are always some miscarriages. One researcher calculated that to father 888 children, the emperor would have had to have mated with 4.8 women every day for 4 decades. With that kind of activity, it's a wonder that Ismail didn't end up like the male Antechinus. Poisoned by steroids in his blood, he's dying for love. But he's actually making the ultimate sacrifice for his family. The female lives on and will raise his children. They'll actually have a better chance of survival without their extreme dad, because in these forests, there's just not enough food for a father that's past his use-by date.
We've rolled past the first 2 contenders. But just wait till your father gets home. Because coming up are dads that love to horse around and real men that can make milk. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 8.
In the parched lands of northern India, our next contender in the countdown of extreme dads isn't the bravest animal on the planet. The golden jackal is sneaky, scrounging a living in the harsh landscape by scavenging scraps of food. Jackals will eat anything, especially when there are young babies at home that need feeding every 2 hours. It's a tough job, but luckily the female's got a partner she can depend on. Unlike almost all other mammals, jackals mate for life. When mom and dad hunt together, their success rate is 3 times greater than if they had hunted alone. That's why the jackal is number 8 in the countdown of extreme fathers. If Dad died, it's unlikely that the rest of the family would survive without his help. Jackal dads have a truly disgusting way of putting dinner on the table. It's a good thing human dads aren't more like jackals when they bring home the bacon.
Mike and Susan are always happy to see me because I'm their father. Mother's glad to see me too. It's good to be home.
During the 60s, the stereotypical American family had mom at home bringing up the kids while dad brought home the money. But today, the traditional family unit has changed. Now, only 7% of American families fit the stereotype. Today, 4 out of 10 children grow up without a father being at home, and that can cause problems. According to one study, 90% of runaway kids don't have dads. And even worse, 70% of violent criminals grew up without a father. Luckily for these pups, this is one extreme father that will never leave home, no matter how demanding his kids are.
So far, we've seen layabout lions, mad marsupial mice, and doting doggy dads. But coming up is a giant bug that really gets to grips with his monstrous family. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 7.
To find the next contender in our countdown of extreme dads, you've got to dive into the rice paddies of Japan. Meet the giant water bug, one of the most devoted fathers in the countdown, with one of the most fearsome reputations. Nothing is safe from its deadly jaws. It'll try to suck the life out of frogs, fishes, and even unwary human hands. But there's a remarkably sensitive side to this extreme dad. High on a plant stem, the female has laid 80 eggs. But in an act of extreme devotion, it's the male giant water bug that stands guard over his eggs. He only leaves to collect water to make sure his family doesn't dry out. All this housework isn't easy, but the eggs are safer up here, far away from the hungry mouths of the giant water bugs down below. After 7 days and nights, the water bug's extreme dedication finally pays off. If only human fathers were all such dedicated homemakers. After all, keeping house and bringing up the kids was once thought to be woman's work. For some reason, men and housework just didn't go together. But things are changing. Today, there are twice as many stay-at-home dads as there were in 1965. And it seems that a house husband's work is never done. this might explain why some believe that house husbandry is bad for your health. Recent research suggests that stay-at-home dads are more likely to die younger. In fact, compared to men who leave the house to work, stay-at-home dads have an 82% higher risk of death from heart disease. But if you think raising a human family is stressful, spare a thought for a different kind of water bug. Instead of raising eggs on plants, this extreme dad rears 150 children on his back. A female water bug turns her mate into the ultimate house husband by cementing her eggs onto his wing cases. The giant water bug is number 7 in the countdown because carrying this precious cargo for a month is truly back-breaking labor.
Number 6.
Our next contender is hidden high in the mountains of the Andes. Meet the rhea, an extreme dad that's also called the South American ostrich. Thanks to this nest, he's very popular with the girls. In fact, he has a harem of 5 females who take turns laying eggs in his nest. But once the females have laid their eggs, they run away, for these girls just want to have fun. And that's why the male rhea is number 6 in the countdown. He's left to raise the family, and he takes his job very seriously. He'll spend the next 2 months on the nest, and he's so dedicated that he'll starve himself in the process. He'll survive on just a quarter of his normal food intake. He can't afford to leave the nest for long because he has to guard his eggs against all kinds of intruders. But for this solo dad, sitting around all day is just the first part of his duties. Soon, he'll have up to 20 new chicks to look after. The chicks will quickly become imprinted on their huge father's form, and for 2 years will never stray far from his side. But what about the father? Why do dads find their babies so appealing? Well, it seems that human dads may be pre-programmed to find babies cute and cuddly. Scientists have found that we respond warmly to certain features associated with a baby's face. They have a large forehead, big eyes, and a small nose. Strangely enough, we can now see these same features in one of the most popular toys in the world. The teddy bear is the best-selling toy of all time. You may not have noticed, but over the last 100 years, the shape of the teddy bear has changed. This is one cuddly toy that's actually become cuddlier, and it's all thanks to our attraction to baby faces. Originally, teddy bears looked reasonably lifelike. They had a small forehead, beady little eyes, and a large snout. But over the years, as we looked for bears that were cuter, we selected toys that were more and more baby-like, with large forehead, big eyes, and a small, cute nose. Baby rhea are also small and cute. We may not turn them into soft toys, but in the eyes of their father, these chicks are the center of the universe. With such dedication, it's no wonder that this massive bird really is one of the most committed fathers in the countdown.
If you thought that this Daddy Longlegs was devoted, coming up are fishy fathers that really are the ultimate homemakers. And we'll find out why teaching a family to fly brought one dad down to earth with a thud. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 5.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme fathers has real trouble building the family home. Here in the marshes of northern Japan, construction is especially difficult for the extreme dad coming in at number 5 in the countdown. The stickleback is an extreme carpenter. When he builds his house, he doesn't use nails. He uses a glue secreted by his kidneys. His house may be small, but it's perfectly formed. At least this female stickleback thinks so. She's quick to cross the threshold, with a little encouragement from the male. Once she's laid her eggs, he dashes in to fertilize them. But then it's out with the old and in with the new, because he wants to lure as many females as possible into his love shack. The stickleback's able to fertilize the eggs of up to 5 females. But that's nothing compared to the theoretical potency of human males. Every human male has the potential to be an extreme dad. After all, in his lifetime, he'll produce an incredible 2,000 billion sperm cells. And since it only takes 1 sperm cell to fertilize an egg, in theory, every time a man makes love to a woman, he releases enough sperm to fertilize every woman in Europe. Theoretically, that means the whole world's population could be reproduced in just 1 day by only 23 men. But fertilizing eggs is easy. Looking after them is difficult. The stickleback is number 5 in the countdown because of the extreme effort he puts into caring for his babies. He fans the eggs with his fins to supply oxygen to the developing embryos and to wash away any waste products. He's so driven, he'll spend 2/3 of his day fanning at up to 400 beats per minute. This extreme dad can even scare off nosy neighbors. Unlike the next contender in the countdown.
Number 4.
Not all dads are big and strong. In fact, coming in at number 4 in the countdown is a male that really gets henpecked.
How long have you known her? Pretending you painted those pictures out of your own head and all the time you were just copying the work of a real artist.
Our next contender lives on the flooded plains of Brazil, where so much rain falls that it helps if you can walk on water. And the jacana does just that. It's also called the lily trotter, for obvious reasons. But this bizarre bird is number 4 in the countdown because the male jacana is an extreme wimp. He's looking after a nest full of eggs, but his mate has disappeared. This female is a stranger, and she needs a new mate. But that's our male's worst nightmare. He can yell all he likes, but the foreign female is only after one thing: his eggs. The ultimate henpecked male can only watch as she smashes his family. The eggs he so carefully reared were nearly ready to hatch, but now they're lunch for the female. Having eaten, the female signals to the male that she's now in the mood for love. And with the most extreme amnesia in the countdown, the bereaved male mates with his baby killer. Later, she'll lay eggs in his nest, but because she has many partners on the floodplains, our dad will never know if he's rearing his chicks or those sired by another henpecked male. But strangely enough, the jacana isn't the only dad to raise someone else's family. This is a family of orphaned geese. They have a surrogate father, Canadian artist Bill Lishman. He had no trouble teaching his babies how to run. Teaching them how to fly required learning a new set of skills. Eventually, Bill learned to fly like a bird, so the next step was to take his surrogate family under his wing. Literally. Bill Lishman was the first human to lead a flock of geese along their migration path. His babies followed him like they would their real father, when in 1994, he escorted 18 geese south from Ontario to Virginia. No wonder they call him Father Goose. It's a shame there's no Father Jacana protecting these chicks. For this henpecked male needs all the help he can get.
We've seen dads lose their chicks. Fish build with sticks. And birds get their kicks. But coming up, we'll discover some dads who just love having a frog in their throat. That's next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme. Number 3.
The next contender in our countdown of extreme dads has a problem. In southern Africa, the rains have gone. These tadpoles are only 2 days old, but already their pool is drying up fast. It's lucky they have an extremely devoted dad. The giant African bullfrog. It's his job to protect his 6,000 children, and he finds an extreme solution to their problem. The bullfrog is number 3 in the countdown because he digs in to help his children out. His powerful legs can build a channel into a bigger pool, and so save his entire family from disaster. For some dads, bringing up baby can be really hard work. In fact, most human fathers have no idea how hard it will be. For some young men, the journey to fatherhood is no game. New York City high school student Richard Hammond is learning that looking after a baby can really upset your social life. As part of a community pregnancy prevention program, he's been given a baby for the weekend. But it's no ordinary baby. It's actually a cyborg with a programmable personality. Richard's part of a program called Baby Think It Over. Together with Carol Lambert from Reality Works Incorporated, Richard can learn how to change a baby's diapers without any of the mess.
And then one.
But there's much more to this baby than meets the eye. It was designed by a rocket scientist using state-of-the-art computer technology.
Inside the baby, what runs it is something called a microprocessor, which is essentially a small computer, and that's what controls baby. It's kind of the heart and soul of baby. Some of the different types of things that baby is able to do is it'll cry and request that the student feed it. It might need to have its diaper changed, to be burped, to be rocked, and it will also report how much it was cared for properly in terms of if it asked to be fed 6 times, was it actually fed 6 times, etc. So the reporting that the teacher gets back on how the student did is very detailed.
So what did Richard think of being a father for the weekend?
It was pretty hard because you couldn't really do what you wanted to do. You had to give your undivided attention to the baby at all times, and you couldn't leave it neglected. So it really was time consuming. My friends would call me and ask me, oh, why don't you come outside, play basketball? But I couldn't because I had to take care of the baby.
At least Richard doesn't have to care for his baby like another extreme father that lives in the forests of South America. Darwin's frog takes his paternal duties one step further than even the African bullfrog. As soon as the female has laid her eggs, it's the male's job to protect his family. So he eats the eggs. His family develops in their own special pond inside his vocal sacs. And there's a very good reason for this extreme behavior. For in this forest, there are plenty of predators that eat frogs, both large and small. Luckily, Darwin's frog has a cunning plan. He flips onto his back and plays dead. Once the danger's passed, he and his babies can swim to safety. And then, after 6 long weeks, this extreme dad gives birth by throwing up. These frogs really give new meaning to the phrase, bringing up the baby.
Number 2.
Welcome to Antarctica, the coldest place on Earth. In winter, it gets so cold here, everything freezes solid, including the ocean. This giant ice block is one of the harshest places to live on the planet, but it's home to the coolest contender in the countdown. Emperor penguins actually travel to Antarctica to breed in the middle of winter. They can slide more than 50 miles to their frozen breeding grounds. Here, the temperature is usually 40 degrees below zero. And to make things worse, it will be more than 4 months before the sun rises above the horizon again. Into this frozen darkness, the female produces an egg. If they leave it on the ground, it will freeze. So this extreme dad makes a nest from his feet. He balances this precious egg on top of his toes, barely moving for 65 long days. The females all left long ago, so the males are left huddled together, waiting for the end of the worst winter on the planet. When the sun finally returns, there are new arrivals in the colony. But there's a problem. How do you feed a hungry chick when the fridge is empty and you haven't eaten for 4 months? The emperor penguin is number 2 in the countdown because he can feed his baby with a special stomach secretion that looks a little like milk. It's a nice trick. But could human fathers also produce milk for their babies? Men have the necessary equipment to make milk. Most scientists think that nipples are just one of those sexually neutral pieces of equipment that humans get regardless of sex, like arms or brains. Men's nipples are fully functional, but their development is usually completely suppressed by male hormones. But throughout history, there have been stories of men producing breast milk, enough even to raise a baby. Having just had a baby, freelance writer Laura Shanley and her partner David decided to test the theory with surprising results.
David decided that he wanted to see if he could produce milk simply through suggestion. So he began saying belief suggestions that he would produce milk. And within a week, one breast swelled up and milk began dripping out. I looked at his breast and it was, one breast was bigger than the other and I saw the milk dripping out. It is happening out there. It's just that most men are too ashamed to admit it.
But emperor penguins aren't ashamed. These extreme dads know that a little mouth-to-mouth resuscitation is necessary when you nest so far from food. Even so, it's a vast relief when, after 2 months away, the females return with stomachs full of fish. But big bellies and small babies make completing the transfer difficult. This is one time when you don't want to stand on your partner's toes. Emperor penguin chicks are lucky they have a father that takes childcare in his stride. But even the coolest dad can't compete with the animal that's number 1 in the countdown.
We've seen the 9 contenders. They're the best of the best. Only one animal is a more extreme fathering machine. It's number 1, and it's coming up next on Animal Planet's The Most Extreme.
to Miami. This is one place where you can find the most extreme dad in the countdown. In these waters, there are males that make the ultimate sacrifice in the name of fatherhood. For here, your mother is also your father. The number one most extreme dad in the countdown is the seahorse. Male seahorses are extremely romantic. When they're in the mood for love, they'll dance for 3 days. And it's all for a good reason. Dancing gives these guys a huge pot belly. And that's a real turn-on for female seahorses. Dancing close to his massive stomach, it takes only seconds for the female to lay hundreds of eggs inside the male. The seahorse is the number one most extreme dad in the countdown because it's the male that gets pregnant. That massive stomach is actually a brood pouch. The walls of his belly provide nourishment for the developing eggs inside him. Unfortunately, human males don't have the necessary equipment to get pregnant. But that doesn't stop some from trying.
I'm going to have a baby whether you like it or not.
I didn't know that, Smith. I'm going to have a baby, too.
You, Mr. Williams?
Well, why, if you can have one, I suppose I can.
In 1996, British journalist Adrian Gadden became a human seahorse. To experience what his pregnant partner was going through, he simulated all the symptoms of pregnancy. He drank salt water to suffer from morning sickness. He wore a false belly containing 20 pounds and strapped weights to his ankles. A constant diet of high-fiber foods generated a steady supply of internal gas. And he even suffered tenderness of the chest region by applying clothespins to his nipples. Guys, don't try this at home. After 9 months of this regime, most men would have a healthy respect for those with a bun in the oven. So spare a thought for the male seahorse. He can have 1,000 buns in his swollen oven. And it's 4 long weeks before his contractions begin. Then this extraordinary dad gives birth. These baby seahorses have a truly unique father. No other dad goes to such extraordinary lengths to look after his babies. So it's no wonder that when it comes to fatherhood, the seahorse really is the most extreme.